Hey, so welcome, Jeff. We're excited you're back for the second time.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much. Always an honor and pleasure to spend time with you.
Well, you know what? I feel the same way. We've known each other for so long, and one thing I know about you is you have been a top listing agent. You know, we both agree that you got to list to exist, right?
That's right.
Why do you think so many people just want to work with buyers? They don't want any listings.
You know, it's a whole different skill set, right? I mean, working with buyers. I mean, here's what we say, I think that you know this. You know, see, buyers, they buy a house, right?
Right.
Sellers choose an agent, and there's a whole different set of skills when somebody's choosing you versus choosing a home. Because if someone's looking as a buyer's agent, anybody can open a door and the house sells itself, right? But you don't ever, very rare do you see a buyer saying, okay, I'm going to go out and interview 3 buyer agents, and I'm going to go, have them come to my house I currently own or go to their office. You don't see buyers really interviewing buyer agents much, but you always see sellers interviewing listing agents. So
Yeah, you do. And even though I don't want to take away any skill or anything like that from a buyer's agent, because I know they work hard as well. I've got to tell you, getting in a car and taking people around, listening to them complain about home after home was not any fun. I did not like that. So my heart goes out to all of them. And at the same time, today we want to talk about listing because that's where you get the calls. You can't even help a buyer's agent if you don't have any listings, for heaven's sakes. So why did you decide to be such a great listing specialist?
Well, it all starts from like the beginning, and it can start whether in the beginning because of my age, or it could be beginning for even an agent today getting in at my age, right? Today's age. But originally started out that when I was 19 years old, getting into business, I had, I was a very, young man at the time, baby face, right? And if you remember back then, this is early 90s, this is 92. Many of the brokerages wouldn't even hire me. They're like, you have no experience. You're too young. You're just out of high school. Like, we don't, we're not even hiring you. In fact, my first brokerage, which was the favorite brokerage for me to go work for, turned me down. There was 2 owners. One said yes, one said no. I went to a different broker, and then they called me back about a week later, and then I left that broker and went back to the original one. So they gave me a shot. But what happened along the way was, I understood for some reason somehow that listings was the name of the game. And my broker manager at the time, he had said, hey, look, here's what you need to do. Because think about it, I didn't have a big center of influence. I didn't have, a past client list. My center of influence, believe it or not, I tell this story, was my yearbook, right? That was who I had to call because that was the only kids I knew. However, I did know a lot of the parents. So I went ahead and looked up everyone in the yearbook and started calling their parents, asking them, do they own a home? Would they ever thought about buying, selling, whatever? But the broker manager said to me, you don't really have a COI list much, but there are expired listings. There's listings out there. And he gave me a script book, and he gave me a Sweat Hogs script book, okay? Right? And he said, here's a script, we had to go look up all the phone numbers, right? White pages and all that kind of stuff, and get the numbers directly. But the MLS used to come out once a month at the end of the month with the thick MLS of all the expired listings. So we had to go look them up physically. And then I got on the phone and started calling. Well, what happened was I would set appointments, get someone on the phone. I would go out and meet them. But when I showed up at the door, I was such baby-faced and no experience. The sellers are like, where's your dad? Like, no, thank you, right? And so what happened out of that was I would get the appointments, but I was getting shot down. I couldn't get any converted. I'm like, well, listen, I'm going to become a great listing agent, but learn this over the phone, right? At least get my presentation really good with sellers over the phone and get it to a place where that 90% they were convinced. And if I had to go meet them, then the 10% of the next execution will become easier. So that's kind of what happened for me. I learned to just be a listing agent and be more over the phone prospecting based and learning scripts to get those listings. And then since then, it just carried all the way through.
It's so funny. I started when I was very young as well. I actually paid a guy $10 to come and sit there. He was older, gray haired, and he'd go, "She's right. She's right."
That's smart.
Oh my goodness. He
That's
loved
great.
it because he got to spend time going out, right? And it was so funny because I'm going, "You could become a realtor." He goes, "I think I know your scripts by now. I've done it
Yes.
so much with you." Yet we all have those times in our life. What did you do? Did you just go through those scripts over and over and over again? How much did you practice?
In the beginning, I guess in the first, and I was a solo agent, for the first, let's say, 8 years or so, I practiced the scripts. I was never really taught to practice them or learn them like the way that we would teach it today. It was a script that was provided through, I guess, my manager got it from however he got it.
Yeah.
But I understood that there was a process in the script. I knew it was like a framework to start and begin. And, I didn't know the language of sales or anything. I just went and he said, "There's the script, go follow it, call the expireds." He'd help me go to the MLS board and grab the book every end of the month. And I would just do that. And then through repetition of doing it, I got better at it. And I think the very first, like second month in, which is like in April, it's another story to this, but I took 14 listings in like my second month in the business.
Oh my word.
Not
I don't
all
know
of
of anybody that's done that.
Yeah, not all of them were saleable by any means. I had no idea. I didn't know how to price them. All I knew how to get them signed, right? So that was a whole nother conversation later. But it's funny because I still have this letter, and it's dated, I think, like April of 92 or May of 92. And I wrote this letter to Tommy Hopkins, right?
Yeah.
And Dear Mr. Hopkins, I'm a new agent in the business, this, that, and the other, and I want to aspire to be like you. And I used to watch his, videos and listen to cassettes and all this stuff. And I took 14 listings in the last 2 months or first month in, whatever it was. Still have that letter today. I mailed it off to him in Arizona, but never got a response. But anyway, that's how I can remember because I have a letter that said it.
Well, the greatest part about that, Tommy Hopkins helped a lot of people, right? And he in his band uniform, how he went out, because they said, "Do you have a suit?" It was the only suit he had.
Right.
You're like him, not in the fact that you wore a band suit. It was the fact that you were willing to do whatever it took. So let's hit on those expireds a little bit, because you don't just call them now and you have a script. You really have some strategy around it. So let's go deep on expireds. Give us step by step what you do, because you're still listing a lot of them.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is to recognize the expired listing mindset. Totally different than a regular just listed, just sold, circle prospect, or even for sale by owner. The expired, you got to start out and understand where they're coming from, understand the mindset. So we zone in on that a little bit, and what we teach and my team and all is most cases they're frustrated. Like, let's think about the characteristics: frustrated, upset, disappointed. We know that they're willing to hire an agent. We know they're willing to pay a commission, which is great. But we also know they had an experience where their home failed to sell, and it may be because of the price, the marketing, it could be the agent, we don't know. But we just know that they've gone through a process and didn't get the results they wanted. So when we come to them right now in that position, understanding they're typically the normal expired listing, we have to understand how do we deal with that, right? And in that process, understanding that if they're really upset and mad, we need to align with them, right? We just can't come out of the gate about I'm the greatest thing ever, right? We need to align with them, mimic them, mirror them, match them in their tonality, rate of speech, where they're coming from. And that in itself, I think that, is one of the secrets in this process of expired listings, is getting aligned with them and getting on their side to understand where they came from. And then earning the right, once you do that, to be able to ask additional questions to see if you can then guide them to the next phase, which is ultimately setting the appointment and showing them what you can do differently.
Yeah, it's getting in rapport with them, frankly, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think, frankly, it's anything, right? As salespeople, it's about getting trust, because, frankly, no one's going to hire me if they don't trust me. No one's going to spend money with anybody if we don't trust them or have a rapport built, right? We're not going to give them a contract.
No, And that trust is something that you build very, very quickly, I know, because I've watched you. Yet it's that rapport, like you said, mimicking, matching their tonality, their words, keyword backtracking, all these things that are selling. And you've become a master at the sales program. You understand them, which is very important in trust. So now you've got their trust. How do you go for the appointment?
Yeah, so I think it's just a series of questions, being curious in that process, following that script that, we've all learned, the framework through it. And it's not just the script, it's about, really listening authentically, listening to what they're saying, hearing what they're not saying many times in this process. Yeah, it's a skill that you have to understand. And what I mean by listen to what they're not saying. So, for an example, would be maybe that a seller says, you've asked them, if you had sold the home, where were you going, right? Well, I was going to Florida. Great. And how soon did you want to be there? Had to been there. Well, I wanted to be there by the end of the year. Okay. And, ultimately in this process, what do you think stopped your home from selling? Well, I think it was just, we didn't get the right buyer, in the door. But we decided right now that we're going to take the home off the market and not, we're just going to wait it out and not sell it. We might wait, another couple of years. Well, what they're really saying is, what they're not saying to me in that conversation is that they just didn't get the right buyer, but ultimately they had a compelling reason to sell it during a certain period of time. And now I understand that there was a certain motivation there. I have to go find what that is. But a lot of agents will just end it there. You decided you're going to take it off the market for a few years and you didn't get the right buyer. Okay, no problem. Well, if I can ever help you, here's my phone number and I'll mail you my card. Okay, that sounds good. Thanks, Jeff. Click.
Right, they're gone. And they're not ever going to remember who you are.
Never.
So when you go, so let's talk about how you uncover motivation from these people.
Certainly. I think motivation is it's understanding. You ask the question, whatever that may be. Obviously you listen, right? You got to really zip it and listen really good to hear what they're saying. In the process of this, you repeat back, obviously, what they said so they understand that you've listened and reaffirm what it was they said. And so now they now, like anybody, one of the greatest, I guess, needs is to be understood and be listened to.
That's right.
And be heard and be accepted. So by doing that process, they're feeling like, hey, this guy or gal really gets me. He understands, right? And so through that, ask another good quality question. Motivation may come up, but then there's the additional in the dialogue. Well, tell me more about that. Okay, and then they're going to reveal more about it. Tell me more, or maybe, well, tell me what was most important about that. What impact will that have for you, right? If you had sold it and moved to Florida, tell me about what was important about that move. Well, you know what? I've got my daughter moved down there, and the grandkids are there now, right? All right, we're in the script, we're in the dialogue. Like, oh, it's great. Wouldn't it have been nice that you were there by the end of the year, Christmas, for your kids, right? Your grandkids. Yeah, I wanted to be there, right? Like, whatever it may be. But you start to unveil, like, okay, what was it about that move that made sense to them by asking some questions? Now they're going to reveal their motivation, but it's going to start with that good quality question first.
Well, you're like peeling the onion, right? Just layer by layer by layer, and you just keep going deeper based upon what they say.
Right.
Sometimes the scripts don't teach you that. So how do you teach your agents to go deeper? Do you have a process to help them learn?
Yeah, so we have those additional questions. What impact will that have you? Tell me more about that. What's most important about this? These are all additional questions that come up. But if you hear in the conversation, you look for seams, right? There's a little seam in the conversation, it opens up, and then you go down that route. And then you go that way and you try to uncover whatever that may be. So there's the script that you follow, but then it's what's in between, the dialogue that's revealed, that you can go down other roads to certainly bring them back, but they typically will reveal these things themselves. So our process is just understanding the basics and then really listening and then taking it down those other paths, to open up whatever that may be that comes up.
What I almost hear you saying is it's kind of like just getting that spark again, lighting that fire within them, and then blowing on those ambers so much that fuel, it just keeps getting hotter and hotter to where, okay, I'm ready to go, because they want to get to Florida with their grandkids.
Yes,
The
100%.
motivation, so I've heard number one, build rapport through understanding, because by understanding them, you'll build trust. Once they trust you, they open up to you, and that's where you go deeper in uncovering that motivation. When you're having trouble uncovering that motivation, do you kind of maybe take a break and then come back, or do you just keep going for it?
I think it depends on the conversation. I mean, you certainly, if let's say that they're resisting you, right? Every question, no, I'm not interested, whatever it may be. That's fine. There's typically always a question that you can ask that will be one that will intrigue them or be able to kind of break the ice, in the conversation. Like, part of one thing is I know you're not interested in selling it. You're not, you're not going to interview any other agents. You're taking off the market. I get all that. The great question is, well, Diana, tell me, what do you think stopped your home from selling? And then don't say anything. Like, it should have sold. What happened? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on? Is there something going on that we don't know about, right? And being curious that way, and you say it in a certain way, like, you lean in a little bit, like, Diana, I'm like, what do you think stopped your home from selling? Well, and then they go in, and now, you're just breaking down that ice a little bit more through that type of question. That seems to work.
Yeah, you're just taking the bricks down one at a time.
Yeah.
Now, you've got them understanding that you care about them. You've got their motivation. What do you do next?
Well, I think that you've built rapport, you've got some motivation, you've uncovered, all the things that you need to know, like what happened. Now it's a matter of just, being able to position yourself to say, well, I hear what you've said. We've got a program, we've got a system, a process that has helped sellers just like you, and I'm selling on a past experience, and say we can do the same as we've done for them. And here are some of the little bit of the results that we've caused, and we'd love to help you do the same. When's a great time to get together and then close for an appointment?
Okay.
So if you could just
now
give
you're
a
in
little
front
bit
of
of teaser.
Now you're in front of them, and one of the things I love about you is you continually say yes, and we sold that one, and yes, we sold that one, and yes, you keep reminding them of the properties that you've sold, right? When you
Yes.
first got started, though, did you use your company statistics? How did you say we sold that one?
We did. I use the company for sure. Use the company, the board. We is we, right? We use we. We sold the real estate community sold it, right? But if you're a company, for sure, use the company statistics. Borrow however which way you can to show, because that's continuing to give you more credibility plus the trust. And if you can create a story in there, like a case study of something, that's also really good. Mr. Seller, I've had another seller similar to yours that, they didn't get their home sold. They wanted to be with their grandkids, and we repositioned their home back in the market. And here's what we did. We did a new updated analysis. We really figured out the right price. We went ahead and got all the new photography because the other ones was terrible. We rewrote the remark section. We then put it out to our database, and we specifically had 648 buyers that matched this price point and this criteria. We emailed them, called them, and texted them, and the results of that generated 8 showings, and out of the 8 showings, we got 2 offers, and we sold the home at 10% or $20,000 above asking, and we did it all in 29 days. So if we could do the same for you, would you consider it? I mean, would it pose a problem if we did the same thing and got you out in 29 days?
Well, first of all, you're running it like a business. You know your numbers.
Yeah.
And many agents don't know their numbers. Now, here's what I love about that a lot of people they're not even getting this yet. Most agents sell to the conscious mind, right? Now, all those numbers are conscious and we can do that. Yet, stories is how the unconscious mind hears things. So, just the fact that you put that into a story, you're engaging their conscious mind and their unconscious mind. And if the unconscious mind says, don't go with this guy, they're not going with you, it doesn't matter what you say. You're a master at this as I'm listening to you. I don't even know if you know that that's what you're doing.
I know that. It's just over time, it's practice over the years, I guess. But yes. Yeah.
Your passion comes through that you want to help these people.
Yes.
How important is it to truly desire to help them get their goal versus just making another sale or getting another listing?
Yeah, I think I think it's a big part. I mean, and again, it's especially newer agents that my team and we train and all that stuff. Like, they're trying to make money, right? They need a commission check. And what's funny, it happens is the less you need it, the more you get. And, if you can really come from the place of being like fully like intentional, listen authentically, care for them, they will feel that. Like they will feel that and know that, hey, this guy's out for my best interest, right? They've got a program, they got a plan. And I think he can make this happen for us where the other guy, gal, whatever, maybe didn't. I don't know in this situation. So it's critical, but it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah,
Right.
well, you're passionate though about helping people, and if you don't care about people, well, they're really not going to care about you.
No.
And like you say, it's an energy. How did
Well,
you practice the energy? Because when you first went in, you needed the listing, you needed
Yeah,
the money. Did you
sure.
tell yourself certain things like, hey, this listing is mine if I desire it and I'm here to help the people? Or did you tell yourself, I'm here to help them, whatever they need, it's all about them? Did you have some storytelling of your own to tell your own brain?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're creating affirmations that we've said, everything from I'm a lean, mean listing machine, all the different affirmations that you can put in your head work. But more than just that's reaffirming my own subconscious. But more importantly, I think that, visualization, seeing and achieving it happen before it happens, and then letting that process happen in all of this is what I've always done, and I'm not, and also understand not being attached to the outcome of that conversation or appointment. Like, just being there for them, whether they list with me or not. I've given them what I think is the best presentation that's going to help them the best. And I also feel in this conversation with them is they're making the worst mistake they've ever made by not.
Yeah, you can tell you truly believe that you are the best thing that can happen to them,
Yeah.
and that you'll take care of them better than anyone else. What did you do to get that mindset?
Let's see. I mean, I'm not sure if there's anything specific I can answer to say. What did I get the mindset? Just that I believe it. Our results show it. And I've seen in the past sellers not hire us, and then I've seen what's happened because of that. And that's given me the proof that we were the better choice because of the end result, the way things happened. And I'm like, yeah, they made a choice. I'm not making them wrong for their choice, but ultimately I know that they didn't get the best result they could have.
So do you ever call anybody, let's say you don't get the listing, do you ever call and ask why?
Sure. Yeah, I've done it for years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I figured you did. Sometimes that feedback is challenging to take, especially when they say, oh, so-and-so will do this, and you do it, you just failed to tell them you did it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So what did you do with the feedback once you received it?
Well, it depends on the feedback that's received. A lot of times, if we don't get a listing right now, it's typically something where they said they can get us more money, doing it for less commission, right? There's always those two factors involved. You know, somebody overpromised them on whatever it was. Or it could be that, you know, it might just be that, hey, you know, we decided to go with someone else. And by the way, you're our second choice if something happens, which, you know, you always hear that, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
you'll be the first to call after it doesn't work, right? And maybe it's that, you know, you know, we just didn't think that, you know, or, you know, we wanted a solo agent, right? We didn't want a team of people. You know, you were seemed to be too big for us, or, you know, maybe that. And then I take that information back, and I have to sometimes reframe it and ask what's most important to you about the agent you choose? Are you looking for a solo agent? Are you looking for someone that has a specialist on their team, right? So tell me more about the agent or team that you choose. You want a big team, a small team, right? So it's taking that feedback and then bring it back in and say, okay, how can I make my presentation and incorporate those things I've learned into it so that it reveals it right away and kind of in the pre-qualifying.
So what it is you're taking the objections you're getting, putting them into the presentation, so you're handling them before you get them. Now,
Exactly.
you are a master at for sale by owners and expireds. Many times you would say, so-and-so had it listed for X number of days. We had it listed and sold it in X number of days. Was that a postcard, a marketing technique? What was it?
We've done all of it. Postcard, video, you know, text messaging, whatever it may be. Yeah, we've done all of those different things to position us as the expert, right? And you know, it's not in a way of throwing the other agent or brokerage under the bus in any way. It's just the facts. You know,
Right.
It had been previously listed with XYZ company for 180 days. That seller hired us, and we sold it in 2. We sold it in 60. And we got them X dollars of percentage, right? So it's just a matter of, you know, being able to use, especially the expires, because you're showing them a case study of someone else that was just like them that hired a different brokerage that failed to sell it. They then hired us as the solution, and then we provided them the result that they're desiring. We're just putting it in a form that shows them our results.
Yeah, you're just showing them the research study.
Right.
And it's all the truth, and you can't hide facts. Yeah, making things up is one thing, and I know you've never put anybody down. You've never put another realtor or another company. You always just focus on what you can do, and you know what concerns you about them going with someone else is they won't get your service, right? So let's stay on expireds here for just a moment, because there's so many expireds out there. Is there a certain day that expireds are better to call than others?
Well, certainly you have the 15th, the 30th, and 31st of the month, the middle of the month, end of the month. In this case, you know, 28th of February. You know, so when you look at your calendar year and you plan out, if you're going to be an agent that wants to work expireds, make sure you're working on those days, right? The 16th, because if it expires on the 15th, make sure you plan your day out, right? Your next day, even if it's a Sunday. If it expires on the 31st and you know it's going to show up on the 1st or the 30th, and that's a Saturday and Sunday or whatever it is, make sure you're available, right? Make sure you're prepared for it. Yeah. Those are the big days that normally are going to happen. You know, there's ways to look in the MLS too, and you certainly can search by 180 days. The listings are 175 days today. Maybe they're listed for 6 months, and there may come up and expire next week. So you can kind of look at MLS and say, hey, you know what? There's going to be a lot of expires coming up based upon days on market, right? Everybody can do that. And then you know, hey, there's going to be a more heavier, amount of them. So you got to get prepared for next week. You know, so just be a little more strategic that way.
Well, you said everyone can do it. The interesting part is not everyone does, and that's what sets you apart, right? You're very intentional about what you do. Why is it important to be intentional when you're a listing agent?
Well, that's, understand that it's part of the business plan. It's part of how our business, 65-70% of our business as a team is listing side sold. Listing sold versus buyer controlled sales. So we got to make sure, and today there are way less expires, way less for sale by owners than there's ever been because inventory is as low, so they're not getting as much, and buyer demand is still high. So a lot of things are selling, and prices are still, have moved upwards. So, the home that was overpriced, in January, maybe priced well in May because of the 5 months of the upswing, and then all of a sudden you're like, ugh, that thing's never going to sell. Next thing you know, it sells because the market moved to it, right? Mm-hmm. So those what would normally have been expired listings in a flat or declining market, are selling. So because it's part of our business plan and part of our major portion of business, we have to be intentional because there's not as much as there was at one time. So if we're going to go after it, let's be strategic. Let's be smart about it. Let's try to find those sellers that are out there. But the reality is, when it comes to expireds, the biggest source of the expireds is the old expireds. The ones that are 12, 18, 24, 36 months ago. Go back 3 years. No one's working that market. And we just ran a search last week in all the markets, like a cover of 2 counties, I think in the last 3 years, expires not relisted. There was over almost 3,000 of them.
Oh my word.
That's a big market.
It's a lot of calls.
Yeah, in the last 3 years to get on and say, hey, are you still considering, getting your home back on the market or selling, right? And so that's a marketplace to go and attack because they were on the market originally for some reason. They had a reason to be on. They were willing to hire an agent, pay a commission, but for some reason the home didn't sell. Maybe motivation changed. Who knows? But today, you just got to get the right one. The motivation could be back again. You just don't know.
This has been so insightful. I know people have gotten a lot. I know there's one more thing, though, that you'd like to say that I didn't ask you about. What is it?
Oh, gosh. When it comes to listings,
yeah,
I would say that it's just a skill-based market. You got to be skillful. You got to learn what to say and how to say it. You got to be good at that. And if you can nail that down, that process, you can list a lot of property. And you got to become a good presenter. You got to understand your presentation. And I always say this, Diana. I say, our average sales prices have gotten so high, and the commissions being earned are so high. In our marketplace, we're over $1 million, right? Average sales price. Now, our team is around 600 because we cover all different markets. So one of the things to consider is, being a good listing agent, you got to really understand what to say and how to say it, be scripted, be a good presenter, understand that sales skills, and get a good nail down your presentation. Because see, today, with the average sales prices being so high around the country, and the average commission on the list side that you're receiving is so much. In our marketplace today, average sales price is $1 million. We cover all different areas, but our average on our team is $600,000. So whatever that commission is to the listing side, 20 grand, 30 grand, whatever it is, it's a lot of money. And what I say to my team is, look, if you came to present, that's just the listing side. If you came to me as a seller, and you sat down, would I pay you up front for your fee? Is your half-hour presentation worth $30,000? Am I going to pay you that? Right? That's just for the listing side. The seller in their mind, though, is thinking, I might have to pay the buy side, so I might be spending $60,000, and I got an agent here. Are they actually worth that much money? And so that's the way most sellers are thinking. So you got to make sure that when you go present for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever that presentation time takes you, that you're worthy the amount that the seller's actually going to pay for your fee. And you must deliver that, show them that value. So in all of this, as being a good, great listing agent, knowing what to say, how to say it, and just become a really good presenter.
And we know commissions are negotiable and all of that. So we didn't use percentages. We didn't use anything that gets us in trouble, so to speak, because it is all negotiable. I love what you say, though. You're sitting there in front of them do they believe you're worth it? And you got to
Right.
build trust. You build a lot of trust with us today, Jeff. I so appreciate you being part of this and to helping so many people, especially around those expired listings, because they are out there. They just have to go get them and be intentional to do so. If they want to hook up with you or give you a referral or even follow you on Facebook, Instagram, all of those, how would they do that?
Everything's at my name at jeffquinton.com or at Jeff Quinton. Just hit me up there. I'm available. And if I can help in any way, I'm always there.
Thank you so much. We so appreciate you.
Thank you. It's an honor
Until
always.
next time, bye.